This is where the coffins are stored. I'm Akismos TV, and today I'm going to show you how a funeral home works in real life. I feel like asking for permission, apologizing when I'm handling them. What we're doing here, we're working with one person, but actually it's to serve sometimes dozens of people.
Dozens who go to the wake, the family members. It's for them, right? It's for them that we need to do this. If you sit down to have lunch and turn on the TV, there will be tragedy, there will be death. You put on a movie, there's death in the movie, like because of Tico. But in your life, which is real life, you don't face it naturally.
Today, La Vida Real is about a more sensitive topic, but it shouldn't be, which is death. I know it's a big taboo for everyone, but it's one of the only certainties we have in life. Everyone you know is going to go through this, including you, including me, and it's important that we know what to do when it happens. That's why today we're at a funeral home to show all the processes that happen when someone reaches the end of their life. My guide today will be Lucas, a funeral professional and also one of the biggest Instagrammers in the field with funeral-related content. How did that happen, Lucas?
I've always wanted to work at a funeral home, ever since I was a kid. And when I finally got into the field, I saw the need to show people, to talk to people about death, about grief, about what this process is like behind the scenes. All the behind the scenes stuff, so I said, I'm gonna show people what goes on behind the scenes, but...
Wait, you said your childhood dream was to work in a funeral home? Yeah.
Kind of a crazy kid, right?
It wasn't about being a soccer player or an astronaut.
At my father's funeral, I saw the funeral director take the body out of the car, prepare everything, place the body on the stands, with all the arrangements, and I didn't understand any of it. I thought it was a cool profession and decided to pursue it, so I found out what I needed to do. I was a kid, so when I turned 18, I went after my license. I went after everything to work at a funeral home. That was my goal from the start.
And I think the purpose of your work and what we're trying to show here today is exactly to make people aware that this is normal. This is the process that everyone will have to go through, and it's important for us to know how to act in these moments, right?
It's like I say, death is part of life. So there's no point in trying to cover it up or not talk about it because it's the biggest certainty we have. For some, it comes sooner, for others later, but it's the only thing we can be sure of.
And this room in general, from my own experience, is also where everything begins. When you have to deal with the death of a loved one, it's a very sensitive moment, having to choose the coffin the person will be buried in. How does that work, man?
The funeral service can only be carried out after the death certificate is provided by the doctor. Whether it's the hospital doctor, the doctor from the Forensic Institute, or the emergency medical doctor, they will provide the death certificate, which is that yellow paper. And from there, the funeral service will take place. So from that point on, the family can come here to arrange the service. Choose which casket it will be, decide how the flowers will be arranged, the location of the wake, the burial site, or cremation.
I have this memory of arriving in a room like this, and then the person asking me, so what does your plan, your insurance cover? I don't really know exactly what it covers. It's this one here that was the simplest. Maybe it's more like this one. This is the simplest one you have.
Yeah, this is the simplest one.
Which is the standard one?
Yeah, this one is actually the simplest for someone paying privately, but we also have the ones from the funeral plan. It was like, look.
But there's a nicer one, that's it.
Oh.
And it costs?
To offer, right? But it's a sale, right?
A sale is a sale. If I came here and I don't have any funeral plan, I haven't made any plans for this, how much does this coffin cost, the simplest one?
Here at our branch, at our funeral home, we sell the funeral service, right? So like people really think they're gonna come here and just buy the casket, right? But if I charge only for the casket, I'll have to charge for all the other things. I'll have to charge for the flowers. I'll have to charge for the funeral staff member who will do the removal, the cost to go, the cost to come back. So usually funeral homes sell the service, right? So here we have services starting at 800 Reis 800.
Reis, and that already covers the casket.
It covers the casket, preparation, cleaning, sealing, decoration, right? The transportation to the nearest wake, it all depends on the region, right? Where the body is, where it's going, and...
In general, you are the one who helps the person here while they're choosing, because really there are some that are prettier, more decorated and everything. But this must be a very sensitive moment for the person.
Yeah, it's a moment that requires preparation. But it's part of the funeral director's job. Even though there are attendants who can do it, it's still part of the funeral director's job because the job is to arrange funerals. You, as the family member, just arrived and need help since you don't know anything. I'm the one who will help you, so who else would it be? I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm here to understand your needs and to arrange the wake, right? A farewell there for your family member, for you.
If I came here like my father just passed away, this is our first step. How would you guide me in choosing a casket?
First of all, as a funeral director, I'm not going to say good morning to you because you're not having a good day, so my condolences. This here is our display, right? If you have a funeral plan, I'll take you to the plan's casket selection. But if you don't and need a private service, I'll say, look, these caskets here, I have all these caskets. I'll explain the differences between them, the handles, the ornaments, right? The designs, whether it has a viewing window or not, and...
It's an interesting thing I was noticing here, right? Because this is a casket that has this covered part, but it can stay...
You can remove it and turn it into a viewing window, right? And then there are caskets with a small viewing window, a casket with a larger viewing window, or a casket where the window shows the whole body, right? So if needed, this one here, you can remove everything and then it becomes a full viewing window. So if there's a need to have a viewing through the window when the wake requires it, like in cases involving a respiratory-related death or an accident, you need to have the viewing through the window. The family has this option to view, either through the small window, where you can only see the face, and then we also offer this option to have the viewing through a larger window, where you'll have more visibility of the body.
And what determines that?
The municipal rules of the municipal viewing hall itself, right? Usually after COVID, there are a lot of cases of respiratory death without a defined cause, so the wake is held with a viewing window, or even in accidents where the body can't be displayed in an open casket, right? They do restorative work, and the body is viewed through a window so the family doesn't touch it during that emotional moment.
It's very impactful because you even have coffins for little babies like that.
Yeah, we usually call them little angel caskets, right? Yeah, this one here is the smallest. It's 60 centimeters. After that, there's the 81 meter, 1.20, 1.40, and then these standard 2 meter ones. Usually, these caskets are for stillborns or newborns, right? A stillborn is one who was born dead, and a newborn is one who was born, lived, and then passed away.
So, man, you were telling me that sometimes the person arrives and they already have clothes they'd like to be buried in. But if not, I can buy them too.
You can buy them here. Let's say you have the burgundy shirt. Yeah, the burgundy shirt of Ottavio, so let's bring the burgundy shirt to put on him. Sometimes the family doesn't want to go to your closet, smell your scent, see your things, or relive everything in that moment. Now then, there's this option, or if they're far away, there's this option to have a suit here, right? Here it's a women's suit, but men's suits in various colors are also available with or without a jacket.
Lucas, I was noticing that it's normal to have religious references here on the coffins, and you were explaining to me, man, that this one is more for those who are Catholic.
Yeah, usually people, Catholics, they come in and they look for caskets that reflect their religion, right? Any religion after death, this one here, it refers to Christ, right? So we have ones of Christ and also of other saints.
But you told me that those who are evangelical prefer these ones here, the ones with phrases.
Bible verses, right? Like this one here.
Okay, I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, even though they are dead, will live. It's a way to leave a...
Yes, a biblical message, right? And then you have it in both colors, both in brown and in white, right? And followers of Afro-Brazilian religions too, who are usually buried in a white casket, right?
Is that so?
Usually there are people from Spiritism, Umbanda, Candomblé, right? They have this preference for a white casket, especially those who hold a position, right? In the religion.
Spiritism leader.
Mãe de Santo, usually, right? They are buried in a white casket.
And if I came here to you and said like, no, but I want, well, my father, he really liked a certain Orixa or a certain saint. Do you do custom orders?
That depends on the supplier. Since the casket isn't made here, it's from the supplier. But yes, there are caskets of all kinds.
Interesting, because I imagine that your job, man, is really about guiding the person in that moment. That's right. For example, imagine I come here, I'm trying to choose a coffin for my father, but my father was obese, and then he said, but he doesn't fit in this one.
He won't fit in this one. One of the first things we ask when the family arrives here with the death certificate is the weight and height. To know if I have that casket, because there's no point in showing you all these caskets if I don't have all of them in special sizes. For an average size person, like I said, this casket here is 2 meters long. If it's someone taller than 2 meters, then we need to have a longer casket. If the person weighs more than 120 kilos, they need to have a special casket, and you have one. You have it here too, right? The funeral home has to be prepared to handle all cases, right?
There's one down here that has some little dog paws on it. What is this, man?
That's a casket for pet burial, right? Yeah, nowadays there's a law that prohibits burial. Illegal burial of animals, whether it's in the backyard, like people usually say.
That this used to be very common.
Yeah, so today it's considered an environmental crime, so the options are either cremation or burial in pet cemeteries, since there are pet cemeteries too. I see.
So, if I'm not going to cremate my little dog, I need to bury him in an adapted casket.
Right? And today, in the state of Sao Paulo, there's a law that allows you to bury your pet in your own burial plot. So if you have a private plot, you can bury your pet there. So this law was enacted and each municipality will implement it according to local needs. But yes, you will need a casket for burial, right? It will be a burial just like a human burial.
Right? Lucas, so this is where you keep the coffins, is that it?
Look at everything. The whole stock is here, right? So the caskets that are used more often we keep down here. The ones for the free service exemption through CRAS, the longer caskets, the special sizes, and the ones that are used less often we keep upstairs. And those over there, are they the biggest ones you have? These here are the biggest ones we have, right? For an obese person, if there's a need to hold a wake for an obese person, we have them here too. Can we open one to show? Let's do it. Do you think we can lift this one here? Is it light?
Is it heavy?
This one is light, this one is the display model. You can put it on top. This one is the display model. It's even made of cardboard. Okay, I'm going to open this one, which is the biggest. Good. Should we turn it forward like this? I think the shot will look like this.
Wow. This one, Lucas, is a coffin for a person who weighs how many kilos?
This one, it goes from 200 to 250.
It even seems small for someone who weighs that much. I think that's something we were talking about. When you're in the coffin, you're really squeezed in and you realize you're smaller than you think, right? Yeah.
When we're preparing the body, we always try to leave it in what we call a comfortable position. Right? So the head can't be too far back. The head always has to be facing toward their feet, right? Facing the people who will come to the wake. That's what we say, right? The hands, always have to be in this position. They can't be too much like this. They can't be too much like that. Yeah, it depends, right? Sometimes the family asks to place them on the chest. Other families, not so much. But it always needs to be in this comfortable position so that the elbow will be more or less at the edge of the casket.
And then, man, I imagine that at this moment, it's the point where some people start to freeze up. Has this ever happened to you? How do you handle it? You're basically like a psychologist.
There are 3 stages the family experiences. You've been through this, so you can confirm or correct me. I think it's the moment when you receive the news of the passing, when the hospital asks you to come with the documents to the hospital. So you already have that shock. The second shock is when you arrive at the funeral home and you have to choose the casket, which is a very difficult moment. And the third moment is the identification. I think these 3 moments, for the person making the declaration, for the one facing everything, these will be the worst moments. For most people, it's when the casket is closed, right? At the wake. But when the casket is closed for us to proceed to the burial, the person who was responsible for everything is already numb. And that, right? They've already experienced this, unlike anyone else.
Yeah, because you were telling me that just like when someone gets married, when someone dies, it requires planning that isn't done.
That isn't done overnight, right?
Yeah, but we don't prepare ourselves, right?
Unless it's in Las Vegas, exactly, yeah.
Because when the time comes...
At the wedding, it takes a lot of preparation. Where is the wedding going to take place? Who's attending the wedding? Which dress or outfit will you wear? It's similar at a wake or funeral, right? In Brazil, there's a custom of burying someone the same day they die.
Man, isn't it like that?
In Brazil, that custom is starting to fade, right? Over time. But if you look at other countries, the wake only starts after a week.
A week?
In England, the United States, and similar countries, when the person passes away, the body goes to the funeral home for all the preparations. So I'll gather the information, what your father liked, what he used to wear, so we can put this funeral together, and the wake will start after a week, right?
I read once that this kind of thing is typical of colder or warmer countries, that because Brazil is a tropical country, sometimes the body would end up,
Right, that was before, right? Of course, the heat will speed up the decomposition of the body, so the wake and burial need to happen faster. But today we have treatments, right? Like thanatopraxy, right? Embalming, which will slow down decomposition and keep the body preserved for longer. It's the procedure that's done for travel, for transport, right? For a family like Lucas, my father died, but my mother is in Japan and she'll only arrive on a certain day. We need to keep this preserved so your mother can also attend the wake.
And at what point in life would you suggest someone start thinking about this?
Of course, there's no age. Death doesn't have an age. It can come at any moment. So the sooner you do it, this concern, all this care, this attention, the better, right? Like I was saying about car insurance, it's more likely that you'll use funeral plan than that you'll need to use your car insurance.
Do you have it?
I do.
Has it been a while?
I started discovering this world when I started working at the funeral home, you know? Seeing it every day, the family's worries, everything. I don't want to bring that to my family.
And you already kind of have, so it's strange to say this, but do you already have a picture in your head of
how it's going to be? Yeah, we always think about it, right? Like me, Lucas, I really want to be cremated, even though we know that not all causes of death allow for cremation. No. A violent or suspicious death, right? A body that goes to the medical examiner's office. In these cases, or a death without a defined cause, cremation can't be done, for example.
It may need to be exhumed later.
Yeah, for an investigation. So in these cases, the crematorium doesn't accept it. So in that situation, you have to do a burial. But now if I have a cause like pneumonia, then cremation can be done. So my family already knows, right? The people here at the funeral home already know. I've already said which casket I want, right? We already have everything prearranged.
So you've chosen cremation. Have you made any other arrangements for the wake?
I always say that the wake should be with joy.
Everyone says that. Is it possible?
Yes, it's possible. We even see wakes, including at our facility, where people have barbecues and drink. Because these people who understand that death is part of life, at the wake, they celebrate. Of course, it's a great pain to lose someone, to never see that person again, but you will remember that person, who they were in life, what they meant to you, right? So you will celebrate their life. A wake is a farewell and a celebration of the person's life.
But Lucas, before being placed here in the coffin, regardless of which one you choose, the body goes through a long process.
A long preparation process, right? From the removal to the preparation until it gets to the wake.
Which is thanatopraxy.
It's the clinical procedure or standard treatment.
This isn't done here. It's done in a lab we're about to visit. We've arrived here at the thanatology laboratory, but I can't help but mention, Lucas, that we got here and you were recognized, man. You're famous in this field.
We do get recognized by people, right? Thanks to the cool content we've been creating, right? Demystifying things, sharing useful information. So people follow along, whether it's to see how the procedure is done, people who want to get into the field, people who have lost someone, people who are already in the field, right?
And like you were telling me, a funeral professional like you, man, is a one-man band. Because you do a lot of things.
Including here, it's thanatopraxy.
Man, this looks like something from an operating table. What's this liquid here?
This here is the injector pump. Thanatopraxy is the clinical process, the clinical procedure to delay decomposition by replacing the blood.
Is that formaldehyde?
This product is based on formaldehyde, correct? This one here.
See? Why are there yellow, green, and red ones?
It's not about the color, but the red one, this little red one here, this TA, is used for arterial treatment. The green one, it's for cavity treatment in the cavities. And the yellow one, it's for arterial treatment in people with liver conditions, right? Yeah, look, it's even written here, for people with liver diseases. This pink one, right, hepatitis. So for these cases, you need this specific product.
And the name is Anubis, which is the Egyptian god of death.
And then this pump, this product, we put it in this pump, the arterial one, and we do the fluid exchange there using the injector pump.
So, for example, a body arrives here, what are you going to do? You were showing me your hand is all hurt, man.
And it was from the clamp itself, right? The pressure from this clamp here.
There are a whole bunch of tools here, right? And you use all this here. You were even showing me that your finger was hurt.
Yeah, my finger's even hurt here from plugging, right?
What does plugging mean and what is used?
Packing is done, right? It's after the embalming procedure on bodies that will undergo the procedure. And also on bodies that will not undergo the procedure. Packing is done in the nose and throat, right, with cotton. The cotton we use is cotton in rope form, right? This cotton here, it's kind of waterproof, right? So when it comes into contact with liquid, it won't soak up like the kind of cotton you'd use on nails.
And here we always need to wear gloves because this is the material, right?
This is a clinical environment, right? So Whenever we're handling things, right? When we're in contact with these instruments, we need to use gloves, right?
So this was the forceps you were using yesterday. Yes, these forceps. And how did you hurt yourself? What were you doing? No.
I think it was more this part, right? The way I was holding it, right? The whole day, so you end up rubbing your hand here a lot. It really scrapes it, right? The packing then will be done first in the mouth, right? So we're going to close the tracheal passage, right, with cotton and with the help of the packing powder. This here is the packing powder that when it comes into contact with liquid, right, it will swell and turn into gel. It turns into gel as we wet it. Blood and other fluids inside the body, sometimes from medication leaks, can be contained using cotton and packing powder. Even after the thanatopraxy procedure, it's also done to make sure there are no problems during the wake, right? I think when someone goes to the wake, the last thing they want to see is the body leaking, right? Leaking blood, fluid, secretions coming out of the nose, right? Or from the mouth.
And that's something that can happen.
It can happen. If the proper procedure isn't done, if the packing isn't done, right? That's exactly what it's for. To hold things in place so the family can have that moment. But Z...
Here, man, for example, here no autopsies are done. That doesn't happen here. No?
Everything here is done afterward. If an autopsy or a necropsy was done at the IML or SVO, then the body comes here afterwards, right? Here the body is washed, and that thing I mentioned, the fluid exchange, is done, right? To preserve, that's when the products are used to fix the tissues for preservation, and then the packing, right?
What I thought that when the body got to this stage, it had already been through the hospital, the coroner's office, and that all the blood and organs had already been removed. That's not how it works.
No, actually the organs aren't removed, right? Even in procedures where the organs are treated and need to be removed, they're put back into the body afterward. It's treated and put back into the body, right? That's the process of thanatopraxy, embalming, right? But in the hospital, actually, when the person passes away, they do sometimes do some packing at the hospital, but it's not the kind of packing used for a wake. I often say that the hospital packing is done so the family can recognize the body so they don't have that shock. And even so, it doesn't really hold back the blood leaks very well, right? Often, when families identify the body, it's dirty. The funeral home's packing is meant for the wake.
And then, man, when the body arrives here, sometimes it was a violent death, right? Something that changed the body. Is it already handled when it arrives, or do you handle it?
Are you referring to reconstruction? Yes, everything will be done on this table. Even though he went through an autopsy at the medical examiner's office in a violent case, or in a case like an accident, for example, where reconstruction is needed, when he comes here to the lab, it's here that the restoration part is done. In fact, here there are some reconstruction materials. This one is a putty, look, Restomax, which is a reconstruction putty. So if someone has a wound that opened up, right, we use this putty to close it and then do the makeup. That's it. The funeral professional, the embalmer, does this, right? He does this work from the beginning. It's work from start to finish, right? From assisting the family in that first room all the way to delivering the body at the cemetery.
How do you deal with that? How do you go back home, have dinner, watch Netflix, and...
I try not to mix things up, you know? Yeah, I say it like this. There's my family, and there are other families. Even though I sometimes spend more time with other families, more time with your family than with my own, when I leave here, I need to go back to my family. And my family doesn't want Lucas the funeral professional. They want Lucas the husband, Lucas the son, so he needs to come back. So what I did here, I took care of a family, I handed things over to the burial attendant, then I go to another family. I try not to hold on to things. So when I leave here, what stayed at work, stays at work. Can you do that? Fortunately, I can. I think that's a big difference for those who enter this field, knowing how to separate things, knowing how to keep your personal life apart from your work life.
That's something I imagine you learned over time, right?
You have to handle it over time, right? Adjust your mindset.
You went through this whole process. Is there anything else?
Once it goes through the procedure, we replace the fluids and aspirate the gases and liquids. The body, after the procedure, its color will look better, right? It will give it that more rosy, more serene appearance. The body, after this procedure, will be able to last longer before decomposition becomes active again, right? And then we move on to the part of preparing the body for the wake. Inside the coffin, inside the casket, okay?
Here, Lucas, we have to put on a mask. Why?
All the necessary PPE to handle the body. Guys, even though it has gone through the preservation procedure, right? At least the minimum PPE, gloves, and mask is important for the professional at this moment, right? Even though at the wake, the family won't be wearing masks. but at least here in the funeral environment, right? Ideally, you should use all the PPE.
I see. So here it's a person who went through the whole process in the lab and then was placed in the coffin. What would be the next steps?
When we place the person in the coffin, they remain loose inside the coffin. So, first we need to measure their height to know how they will be positioned inside the coffin. How will we do it? Not in the middle. We position the whole body as if it's visible through the viewing window. In the small window of the coffin, as we call it, how do I know that height? Usually we close this part of the casket, which will be here, and we measure 4 finger widths. The head has to be past this point, so it's already in that position. If you look at the body, the elbow will be more or less at the elbow of the casket, but his elbow is still low, right? The foot hasn't reached the end of the casket yet. We secure it with newspaper, right? With balls of newspaper here, right? We roll them up to secure so that the body doesn't slide down during the trip to the wake. So we secure it here with newspaper. So now the body won't slide down anymore.
I can see that the body is already pretty stiff at this point.
Yes, embalming in fact will make the body stiff. The person is not stiff because of rigor mortis, which is part of the process, but rather because of the procedure that was done. After that, we will place her at the right height. The person should never have their head tilted back. Ideally, they should always be facing, looking toward their feet, right? We usually position them here, slightly raised. When the person arrives at the wake, they always arrive facing the body, usually, right? They arrive facing the body. So the body needs to be turned facing that way. How are we going to lift this body now, right? With the newspaper.
Is this special newspaper?
It's just regular newsprint paper from the print shop, right? Some funeral homes might use shredded paper, styrofoam, right? Even rolled up cardboard, or even newspaper. I think newspaper is easier to handle because I can make it the size I want. So the first thing I'm going to do is lift the person. They're deep in the casket, so we're going to lift them to put them in position. If we fold the newspaper, it won't gain weight, it won't gain volume. If we roll the newspaper, it will get too thick. And we won't be able to handle it. The ideal thing is to crumple the newspaper any way you want. You're going to take the 4 newspapers and you're going to crumple them up. And you're going to do it like this, and then you press it down. It'll turn into something like a rolled up snack.
I see. And this here is kind of like a pillow then.
It's like a wedge, right? That's what we call it. I'll grab some more. We're going to lift the body now. I'll lift here, you slide it underneath there. Okay. Put it under her shoulder. Here. Then I lift here too. The shoulder, if you notice, has already reached the height I want, so I can close this ruffle, and the shoulder is here close to the ruffle. Yes, otherwise it will be too deep. But now we need to lift the head too. So in the same way, we're going to do this lifting, right? There you go. See how it already raised it a bit? When someone is getting things ready, how many times have you seen at a wake the nose touching the lid, right? That's the big fear when people go to a wake and say, wow, the nose got squished. It's because the person who prepared it didn't take proper care with that. You can check if the nose is touching by closing the lid and seeing if the nose is hitting the lid. That means the body is too high, so you need to lower it. Or you can measure it here. Look, usually if you put it in a standard casket, if you use your hand span,
that's about how much it will go.
That's about how much space the lid takes up. If it goes past your hand span, the nose will touch, so be careful.
It's always in these little details that you see the difference between a job well done and a poorly done one. And there's something I'm wondering here, Lucas. I have to admit, this is a learning process for me to understand how I should act. My instinct is to ask for permission, to apologize when I'm handling things. Yeah, how do you...
A lot of people ask for permission, sometimes because of religious reasons, right? And about apologizing, you have to understand that it's a process that needs to be done so the family can hold the wake.
But what I'm feeling, did you feel it too?
It's normal, yes, because it's something new, right? You're going through a new situation, so all the care you'll need to take, it's still going to be something sensitive for you. But you always don't think about the person inside the casket. Think about the person who's there now, waiting, letting the other family members know who got the news, the person who's on the other side. That's your client. Your client isn't the one here. Your client is the one over there.
And that changes everything, because what we're doing here, we're working with one person, but actually it's to serve sometimes dozens.
Dozens who go to the wake, the family members, children, grandchildren, nephews, and nieces. It's for them, right? It's for them that we need to do this. We did it, we raised the shoulder, but now the elbow, I think it's a little low. It's too low like this. Look, we need to lift it up to leave it in a comfortable position. What will help us with this is a blanket, or also known as a comforter, which is this one here, right? Funeral homes can use leaves, maybe fern leaves, on the lower part of the body. Non-woven fabric, foam, right? We choose to work with this blanket, right? Because it will cover everything already, okay? It's useful if the family can't afford a good arrangement, right? Depending on the funeral home, they charge for the arrangement, okay? Here, everything is already included, so we use this here because it will replace, right? The flowers. Sometimes there are families that don't like flowers. We hear that a lot. I don't want flowers at my wake. Yes, so we need to adapt, all right? All with this cloth, right? We'll use this satin here to replace the flowers. See, it fits right here and even has the fittings. It fits on the side. Certain religions ask not to cross your hands. Really? Which one? Yeah, Spiritism, depending, right? Depending on the religion, they ask not to cross your hands. For Catholics, the hands are usually crossed, right? Everything returns as the family member arranged. It's unsafe there.
You know, the interview is done precisely to consider every detail.
How do you want the decorations? Do you want decorations with only white flowers? Do you want a wake or do you want a direct burial, right? We already do that and make those choices with the family ahead of time. So, in this case, the family requested the hands to be crossed, but even if they hadn't, the usual practice is to always have the hands crossed.
We were up there and we found a gentleman who was wearing a Corinthians shirt.
From Corinthians. It's a choice, it's a choice. Yes, exactly. So whatever the family sends, we will put it on. At this moment then, she's stiff. However, if we put the flower on top right now, the flowers will end up a bit disconnected from each other. So we need to level it, make a kind of base layer. Yeah, usually it can be done with non-woven fabric with foam, right? Today I'm going to teach you how to do it with sawdust, with wood dust. Usually you can use that little pillow that comes inside the coffin, right? People think that actually when we arrange the body, we're going to rest the head on top of it, but actually that's not the case. The little pillow, we put the little pillow in later. At the first moment of removal, yes, we can use it for support. But after that, we're going to line this area here. We already have some sawdust ready here. Pile it up here. It's the sawdust from the wood itself. We're going to put it here, look. And you level the casket. You always have to be careful at this stage of the process not to get the person's face or clothes dirty, right? So, always put your hand like this, so it doesn't fall on the person's hair. With a spray bottle or water, we wet the sawdust so it expands. See? It's going to expand and settle in place, so it won't fly around.
I see, to fix it in place.
That's right. And it's going to make the little piece of wood expand. Now we can add the flowers to do this part of the decoration. I brought some colorful ones and some white ones here. In a standard casket, the amount is always basically 2 bunches. You might use just a little bit more. But with 2 bunches, you can make a nice and simple decoration on the body. That's what was requested, a simple decoration. Okay, we choose to work with natural flowers. Some funeral homes use artificial permanent flowers, right? Also, because of the location. Sometimes, in some states, it's hard to find flowers. Here, in our state, we're lucky to have a lot of flowers everywhere. And then...
now we start placing them.
I like to do it in a line. If you started from there, keep making it in a line and placing one on top of the other.
Look, I got it.
Covering all the wax powder?
Actually, it would look like this.
And always covering and pressing it so its petals open up, right? So, we're going to decorate everything where we covered with the sawdust. The sawdust was used to level the flowers. A path of flowers. One concern when decorating is always to keep the flowers facing that way for the person who is going to enter the wake. Exactly.
Look here. One thing I was thinking about is how there are so many steps in a very complex process that the funeral director has to know how to handle. Taking care of the person there, choosing the coffin, then doing the lab work, and then handling all this part here. In Brazil, one person handles everything. But in other places, it's more specialized because it seems like too many specialties for just one professional to have.
That will vary a lot depending on the company. Yeah, for example, today we have, even though everyone knows how to do everything, today we have separate roles. The agent, there's the funeral professional who handles removal and conventional preparation. We have embalming technicians who specialize in embalming. Because a thanatopractor, a funeral professional, he can be a thanatopractor, but not every funeral agent is a thanatopractor because you need a specific course for that.
And did you do it? Did you go to college or something like that?
Actually, in Brazil, it doesn't require a college degree yet. It's a technical course that can even be taken in funeral homes. Here we offer courses in thanatopraxy. We train students every month to work in the job market, yes. It's a field that's been growing, right? A field that's increasingly recognized and an important profession, right? So there's also the attendant role. There's the post-service part as well. Who will get in touch with the family to see if they need anything, right? Some support there. All these functions are separate, right? And finally, we are going to put the veil, which goes over the body, to prevent flies, right, from landing on the body during the wake.
By the way, Lucas, here you have everything, right? Makeup, yes.
Here we have all the makeup supplies, right? The ones we use on the bodies, right? Yeah, post-mortem makeup isn't to beautify the corpse, right? People who look for post-mortem makeup courses often think, I want to be a post-mortem makeup artist, I want to beautify people. But actually, post-mortem makeup is corrective. It's to fix an injury, to cover up a bruise, someone who is really, really bruised. Except in cases where the family asks for it. I want red lipstick, I want heavy makeup because she used to wear heavy makeup.
That was that person's personality.
Then you follow that. But if it's someone who never wore makeup and we put makeup on them, we're taking away that person's characteristics, which should never happen. Like I said, the beard, don't shave the beard if the family didn't ask for it. Don't put on makeup if the family didn't ask for it.
Do you think that the wake is an important moment in a person's grieving process? Because I have it in my head that I wouldn't want to see anyone from my family after death. That's a view I don't know why I formed, but many people say that view is wrong, that it's important for you to go.
Yes, the wake is important for getting through this process. Like I said, it's not just because you buried or cremated that it's over, that you won't suffer anymore. You'll keep remembering that person. Yeah, I think it really varies from person to person. Some people really don't like going to wakes, but I think it's important for you to have this moment, which brings closure. So you know that this cycle with that person has ended, and now you have to start a new one. I think that when you don't go through this, it's like the cycle is left open. We see this a lot here. Cases of missing people, like my father disappeared and he's missing. That cycle didn't end because you didn't see it end, so you didn't have that closure. That's why I think going to a wake is very important. And then we put it underneath the one we just tied now.
We're done.
It's done, right? We take this veil off for now, but later during the ceremony we put it back on, right?
And now we can finish. You can close it. And from here, it would go to the wake.
Now let's go to the wake so the family can have their last moment of farewell there, pay their respects according to each family's ritual, and say goodbye to their loved one's body.
And after the wake, then either the body is cremated,
or it is buried.
Or it is buried. You don't have a cemetery, but you have a crematorium. So what are we going to see now? Look, we've arrived here at the crematorium of the funeral home where you work, but it's under renovation, right?
It's about to be inaugurated.
However, what's already installed here is what would be the elevator that comes down from the wake.
Yes, this is the one that will bring the body from upstairs, from the ceremony room. Then I bring it down and pick it up with this one. In this case, the furnace operator does it. Right. I get the body there and take it to the furnace. Actually, it first goes through the refrigeration room. There has to be a 24-hour waiting period before cremation, right? 24 hours, and if the person is spiritist, we wait 72 hours. Why? In Spiritism, there's the belief that 72 hours is the time it takes for the spirit to leave the body.
For the soul to detach.
That's right. And then the crematoriums, they respect this 72-hour period.
The hours are
24 hours legally in case, there is any...
Even this thing of...
People who say...
was buried alive because it goes through so many processes.
Maybe in the past it was possible, right? Back when there weren't so many procedures, there was no sealing of body openings, there was no embalming process, most likely, right? That's why the story goes that wakes were created to be sure. People used to have that disease called catalepsy a lot, where the person was basically dead and then would wake up already inside the coffin. So the body was placed on a table and the family would wait. If they returned, great. If not, amen. And that's why they started holding wakes. The cold chambers were also used to store and preserve the bodies. This one here is a cold chamber that can hold the casket of obese people.
Just like that casket.
Just like that casket we just saw. In this case, it would go in this compartment, right? And the others are for standard caskets. And then, once the cremation is authorized, you can come to the furnace where the cremation will be done.
This is a new furnace. It hasn't been used yet.
It has been used, right? Everything is all set, approved, and actually, there will be 4 furnaces here.
And how long does the cremation process take?
It depends. It depends on the size, right, of the body. On average, I think about 2 or 3 hours, more or less.
That's quite a long time. This whole process here is no longer attended by the family.
Not by the family. They say goodbye at the ceremony or wake, but don't attend the cremation. People often think that once it's cremated, it immediately turns to ashes in here, right? And there's even a concern about mixing my ashes with your ashes inside, but that's actually not what happens. First of all, only the body will fit inside the furnace, right? When you put it in, only the body will fit in there. The casket will turn to soot, the clothes will turn to soot, you know? Only the bones will actually remain. So the bones will remain, and after this process, they are crushed to become ashes.
So it doesn't burn the person, it turns into a skeleton.
Yeah, it's like a skeleton. And then they crush it in that machine over there. This process, it's the same process for both humans and pets. It's the same cremation process.
And then when you get it, there's this thing, right? Like, I want my ashes to be scattered in the sea. I want them to be scattered. Can you do that?
Yeah, it really depends on the law. It's not recommended to scatter them directly into the sea like people usually choose, right? But there are urns that you can put in the sea. And nowadays there are even urns that turn into coral, you know? So it's like that. I think if someone wants their ashes to be scattered in the sea, it's to contribute to the continuity of life. So these urns that turn into coral or urns that dissolve in water, you know, there are all these options too.
But if I want, for example, to take the ashes with me, is that allowed?
But
I can't scatter them in a park, in a place that I know that person liked, for example.
yeah, it really depends on the local laws, you know, where you're going to do this, on the municipality, but that's usually what happens, right? That's what people do.
And I think you noticed, Lucas, that throughout the whole episode I was tense. Yes. Yeah, I think you must be used to seeing people get like this, right? Yeah, but I see that you handle everything with a very natural ease. Natural. You can tell me like, man, I've been working with this for 5 years now, right? You were telling me it was something you started after the pandemic and all that. It's been quite a while already. But you mentioned that from an early age you saw your father's wake and you said that was cool. Why do you think you were able to see death in such a light way at such a young age?
But I think that seeing my father lying in a coffin, already lifeless, and seeing the whole family around, right? Each one reacting in their own way, some making more of a scene than others, some crying more than others. I think wanting to care for other families comes from someone caring for mine, so now I want to do the same for others. I want to be part of the process of removing, preparing, and delivering the body to the family, which is important work. Imagine if there were no funeral director, would the family be able to do that? Maybe not. So there needs to be someone to coordinate everything, to help out, so I see it as something natural. And actually, it is natural, it's just prejudice that we create. If you sit down to have lunch and turn on the TV, you'll see tragedy, you'll see death. If you put on a movie, there's death in the movie, like, so why in your life, which is real life, don't you face it naturally?
It's incredible because it seems like it's something we believe won't happen to us, right? There's just no way. So man, your work is really beautiful and I hope the video helped people face death as something more natural, even though sometimes it can't be kept light because death is part of real life.